boxers of all time, Manny Pacquiao, is coming out of retirement and returning to the ring. And we've got retired two-time Super Bowl champ Malcolm Jenkins joining us to talk about his latest business ventures and upcoming art show. Hello and welcome into Front Office Sports today from our FOS studio in New York City. I'm Renee Washington.
Yeah, happy Friday, friends. I'm Baker Machado. Thanks so much for joining us. And of course, every weekday, Renee and I are chatting the biggest stories that are happening in the world of business, sports, and culture. And we got a big show ahead for you, including Malcolm Jenkins. But first, let's dive into the shoot-around.
Looking at the success of last year's Week 1 NFL game in Brazil with my Super Bowl champions, the Eagles, and the Packers on Peacock with a price tag of $105 million, the league returns to Brazil to kick off the season, and this year on YouTube. Now, we may not know who the Chargers play, but we do know, unlike last year, that across the globe, the game will be streamed on YouTube at no charge. YouTube, of course, is the favorite, beating out Warner Brothers Discovery, Amazon Prime. This is just great for fans to be able to watch for free.
This is the biggest part, the free aspect of this. You don't have to sign up for like a subscription to Peacock. You don't got to sign up for Netflix. This is available to everybody, and everybody knows how to use YouTube. And because of the international audience, it being in Brazil, this is a game changer for a company like for YouTube and for the NFL as well. Of course, this isn't the first time YouTube and the NFL have worked together. They're in the midst of that big $14 billion 7-year deal that allows YouTube TV to stream NFL Sunday Ticket. But the cost, I mean, you mentioned $105 million is how much Peacock paid for that. There's reports that maybe it's higher than that, which is going to be crazy.
Yeah, what's also crazy is the first and only 8-division champion in boxing history. Manny Pacquiao is coming out of retirement. 46-year-old Pacquiao looks like he still got it when you look at the pictures. Now, he is set to be inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame next month. He's also been working in politics. He's in a close Senate race in the Philippines. But he returns to the ring for the first time since August 2021, and he's planned to fight Mario Barrios for the WBC Welterweight Championship July 19th in Vegas.
Yeah, we don't know like where it's going to be, reportedly because Lady Gaga also is having performances at some of the same arenas, so they have to get that figured out where that's going to happen. But it all, as you mentioned, makes sense that he's going to come out of retirement for an announcement on this because he's got this close Senate race. Apparently, he also is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame next month as well. So there's a lot of big news nuggets that would allow him to sort of come out and say, look, guess what else is happening? I'm coming out of retirement.
Now, he won't officially announce the coming out of retirement, I should say, until after the election, May 12th. So, but it is tentative, and all signs are pointing in the direction he's back.
Right.
And also a historic deal in Houston. The Texans and rookie wide receiver Jayden Higgins have agreed to a fully guaranteed 4-year, $11 million contract. Now, this marks the first time that a second-round pick in NFL history has had a fully guaranteed contract. And it's remarkable because when you look at this, it's usually only first-round draft picks that get those fully guaranteed contracts. But it says a lot about GM Nick Caserio and the Texans' belief in the number 34 pick from Iowa State.
Or the fact that the Texans have no wide receivers on their roster, and they're like, we better give this guy as much of a guaranteed deal as possible because they obviously lost Stephon Diggs last year. Tank Dell's status, obviously questionable as well. He had an incredible combine, and a lot of people had him pegged as one of the top 5 wide receivers going to the draft anyway. We interviewed him for Front Office Sports at Radio Row during the Super Bowl, and he is tall. Exactly. He is one of the tallest wide receivers in the draft as well. So to your point, you're right. Houston obviously has a lot of faith in him, but obviously they need a wide receiver really badly, and he's somebody that they think can develop well for them.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned his height because his build, his height, his catch radius are some of the reasons why they've compared him to someone like wideout Nico Collins and felt like he's deserving of this. They're excited about him, the future of what Higgins can bring to the Texans.
Absolutely.
Well, over in Pittsburgh, we've got a manager firing, trades, fan problems. The Steelers and the Pirates have been dealing with some issues. I don't know what's going on in the water lately in Pittsburgh, but let's take a look at that in our main event. What in the world is going on in Pittsburgh? Steelers and Pirates, we're talking about you. The Steelers, will start there, have had several teams that are apparently laughing at them. Why, you ask? Because as reports have come out around that trade with the Cowboys around George Pickens, allegedly there were several teams that The Athletic, as they polled, said they were laughing at the thought of a trade for George Pickens involving draft picks. So nobody was in on it except the Cowboys, which, you know, as an Eagles fan, I love they're the only team that took that deal. But what's also Also laughable, Aaron Rodgers. We have no idea what's going on with the quarterback room for the Steelers. Of course, in this past offseason alone, losing Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Now it's Mason Rudolph. Their quarterback room is very, very odd. They drafted Will Howard. We're not really sure who their QB1 is going to be. And they have come out and said they haven't really been talking with Aaron Rodgers. And they even feel like the pursuit of Rodgers is more complex than even AI, as some reports have come out from their team. So very interesting what's going on right now, Baker.
You could make the argument maybe because of these moves that they've made, losing Russell Wilson, you mentioned, in Justin Fields, maybe they aren't going to sign Aaron Rodgers because there's just no wide receivers or anybody to be there. Now, they did, I think, upgrade George Pickens, making that acquisition of DK Metcalf from the Seattle Seahawks, who I think is an amazing wide receiver. But there are a lot of question marks for this team, especially given the fact that you look at Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season in Pittsburgh. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not going to make the playoffs. There's clearly a ton of question marks for the Steelers, but I don't know necessarily if Aaron Rodgers solves any issues for them. And if you're Aaron Rodgers, do you even want to go to the Steelers, I
don't know if DK Metcalf, Darius Slay, those type of acquisitions are enough for Aaron Rodgers to want to go there and think this is a team that could be over even 500. So
they're in a better position, by the way, than the Pirates. Can we agree on that?
Let's talk about those Pirates because they have had a lot of issues coming out. And it starts with the firing of their manager, Derek Shelton. Now, Derek Shelton has been involved in the managerial role for a little over 5 seasons. And in that time, for this third worst team in Major League Baseball, it hasn't been good. They've had 0 playoff appearances, 0 winning seasons. Their team averages a $69.4 million payroll. And he's had the 3rd worst win percentage in that span. He's never finished higher than 4th out of 5 in the NL Central. So now bench coach Don Kelly steps in his place. But this also, Baker, marks the earliest a manager has been fired since 2018. And he's out of here.
Okay, so the top 3, you mentioned their small payroll, $87.6 million, 26th in baseball. Their top 3 players, the highest paid one, Mitch Keller, $15.4 million. Paul Skeens isn't anywhere even in the top 5 highest paid players on that roster. And if you look at them, and you mentioned the postseason, nobody's been on a drought longer than them. I mean, 9 years. The Angels are the only ones that have come close to that. Since the last time, get this, the Pirates made the postseason, which was 2015, and that was a good year, by the way. The Brewers have been to the playoffs 6 times, the Rays 5, Twins 4, A's 3, and guess what? The Colorado Rockies twice. The Rockies have made it twice over that. And also, the Pirates just aren't investing in their team.
The key.
They spent less than $20 million in free agency last year. The year before that, $30 million. The year before that, $30 million. $6.2 million was how much they spent in the first year that that previous manager had been on the roster. That just goes to show that if you're not investing in your team, what do you expect them to do?
And that's why since 1992, when I was born, they've only had 4 winning seasons. Now, their owner, Bob Nutting, has not invested, as you mentioned, at all. That's why they had the 5th lowest payroll on opening day. And in this past decade, they haven't signed a free agent to a multi-year deal. They have had mixed reactions on how Paul Skeens, the NL Rookie of the Year, was even managed last year. Prospect Bubba Chandler's in the same boat this year. And they haven't spent money in free agency in an era of baseball where you're seeing Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto types of deals that are historic. So to not spend money in baseball and have these low deals are ridiculous. And on top of that, there's been fan issues. We had a fan that got into an altercation, was harassing a concession stands worker, then spit on an employee. There was fighting, there was a belt whipping, there was spit exchange. There was a 20-year-old college football player that fell, who is doing better, thankfully, working towards rehab. But this has just been, I don't know what's going on at PNC Park. I don't know what's going on with the Pirates, but it's been a lot.
This gets to a larger existential problem with Major League Baseball, which is the teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees who continue to invest in their team, and the small market teams like the Rockies and the Pirates who complain about those big market teams. But and this is why there's talk that maybe we're going to have a labor stoppage because of this. The point is, you can't complain when other teams like the Royals and even the Brewers are making the playoffs, but you are not.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, the largest deal that we've seen over a decade ago for the Pirates, a 3-year, $39 million deal for Francisco Liriano. Haven't done much, but we've got much coming up here because Malcolm Jenkins, 2-time Super Bowl champ, is joining us to talk about his winning on and off the field now in business and art. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this break. And welcome back into Front Office Sports today. Alongside Baker and myself, Renee, we've got a champ in the house. 2-time Super Bowl champion, former NFL star. activist, philanthropist, business owner, Malcolm Jenkins. So nice to have you in studio. Yes. Now, I love the work that you do with the Malcolm Jenkins Foundation, and most recently, as you're getting into and doing more in the space of art. The game of art, we're in this together fundraiser. It's an exciting time. You've got your event next week, an auction as well. Can you tell us about the vision and even the auction specifically in terms of what to expect for this event?
Yeah, so the Malcolm Jenkins Foundation, we're celebrating 15 years this June. And so we're thinking about, what are fun ways to honor that work, but also continue to support it through fundraising. I've been doing a lot in the art space, and I feel like as athletes, we have a really cool opportunity to convene these different worlds. And art is a great medium to have conversation and bring forward stories, which I think is very, very important, especially when we talk about youth and empowering communities. It's making sure that they're seen, making sure their histories and their stories are preserved. We're doing that through the foundation and doing it with partnership with Phillips Auction House. The first time they partnered with an athlete to do this type of charity auction. And so I've worked with some celebrated artists, Tavares Strand, Yo-Yo Lander, a few other friends that have donated works that all the money and proceeds will go to the foundation. And we take care of everywhere that I call home. So we operate across New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Louisiana, all places that I played football in and called home. That's where we operate.
Yeah, and so the auction you mentioned is next week, but tonight is what's happening tonight?
Yeah, so on Friday, Friday evening, we have a mixer with Phillips where we're able to showcase and preview the work. People can bid. The auction is actually open right now. You can go on Phillips.com and see all of the works that'll be auctioned off on Tuesday or Wednesday, the 14th, during their afternoon session.
And what I love is, as you mentioned, art is so big in terms of the cultural impact and being able to connect to your roots and so many other factors, but also you're bringing other athletes involved in investing in art. Yeah. What drew you to want to encourage others to capitalize on getting involved in the space of art?
Yeah, well, I think there's a huge opportunity, especially for athletes. It's a very unique avenue. Some of us are getting more and more into investing and things like that. And so we're thinking about long-term investing, art as one of those asset classes that it is not correlated with the stock market. So it doesn't have all the volatility, but if you do it the right way, can grow over time. And we've seen that with different art collections. And so when you talk about not only being a cultural steward of history and stories, but being able to turn that into an investment that over time you can pass down, you can leverage, you can do things with, I think is an important conversation to have when we're talking about diversifying assets. And as an athlete, even being able to draw attention to the artists that you collect is a unique ability that you have because you have platform. So just like you can invest in a company and provide value to that company by putting it on your platform, you can do the same thing with artists. And I think that's a really unique place that I'm learning to stand in.
Well, one of the other things, because you have one of the most diversified portfolios out there that you own, is your minority stake in Burnley, the English football team. We see so many celebs and former athletes wanting to become owners of teams across the board. Why is that? It's because it is such an asset that it grows so much exponentially that was one of the reasons you wanted it?
Well, two reasons. It's the sports is what we know best. We're experts in that field, right? From every aspect of it, how to build a personal brand all the way to how the back end of the business goes. And then I think secondly, when you look at, especially in my case, the NFL, some of these sports teams, the best investments that are out there. Yeah. Right? They've got TV deals that are locked in. They've got revenue for 10 years straight. There are not many investments out there that are going to, you can get into like that. So I think you see more and more athletes wanting to take not only to participate in the sport, but to participate in the equity of it and the value that they're helping to bring to these sports. And so looking at the NFL, looking at leagues like the EPL, that's how I got into Burnley. And even now, obviously, a lot of hype around the WNBA.
Yeah, and NWSL too.
Yeah, these are growing emerging leagues that are looking for investments. So athletes, I think, are primed to kind of put themselves or wedge themselves in that situation, being not only stewards of the game and ambassadors of the game, but experts at what it takes to elevate it.
Well, talk about being an expert. You're known for your high IQ on the football field, but also when you look at the business side, the ability to be the first NFL player to have an ownership as an investor, a minority investor with Burnley, to be the first in the Premier League, to be able to have now your 28th franchise. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
That just opened up in Hamilton, New Jersey with Wingstop. How have you been able to be ahead of the curve, to lead and be that trailblazer in terms of business ventures? Is there a specific person?
Yeah.
Is it just, you researching? What's helped you be able to be the first and help open these doors for others as well?
Teamwork. I come from I've been bred in team sports. And so I know anything that you're trying to accomplish that's bigger than you requires other people. And I've been blessed to have a really dynamic team early on in my career. We've been building, we didn't wait till I retired to try to do things. My second year in the league, and we started, getting into real estate. We started building franchises. And so now we're in a position to help others, which is really cool. Understanding that this blueprint is not common. We're not the first to do it. I can look at people like LeBron, and he's a model that we've looked at as far as building things out. People like Junior Bridgman is a great example. But those models need to be replicated. They need to be shown. And I think, one of the things I try to do is push myself, into different spaces to learn, knowing that there are a ton of other athletes or a ton of people that are just watching that example and learning from the mistakes, the successes, all of it. So I really enjoy being at the forefront of that. And it comes really down to my team that has been helping me build it the whole way.
Do you want to be an NFL owner or invest in an NFL team one day? Is that something that's ever crossed your mind?
I would definitely want to invest in the NFL. Like I said, from an investment standpoint alone, it's probably the best, one of the best investments out there. But as far as, again, the game, being involved, I think from that high level is definitely something that's interesting. And because I've sat in every seat when the players union, sat across from negotiations, been a player for 13 years, and now even on a fan standpoint and understanding the fan experience, those are invaluable, insights that I think can help any franchise.
Stepping outside the box, and also with a great event coming up this week. More that you're accomplishing and looking for doing that. So watching, I should say, you do that. So thank you, Malcolm, so much for taking time to join us here on Front Office Sports today. It's been a pleasure hearing about all the different ventures. And we've got more coming up after this break as we continue diving into the latest. Stay tuned right after this. More on Front Office Sports today. Welcome back to Front Office Sports Today. Baker, Renee here, and our FOS multimedia reporter Derryl Barnes was down at our Breaking Barrier Summit yesterday. It's an event celebrating inspirational, powerful bosses, women in sports. Let's take a look.
Baker, Renee, I don't know if you guys have ever had the chance to sit down in a room full of what Sheryl Swoopes calls badass women in sports and business. That's what happened here at the Breaking Barrier Summit, an experience hosted by Front Office Sports and Excel Sports Management. The whole point, the main goal here was to celebrate and empower the next generation of women in business. We had athletes like Michelle Wee West talking about hosting the Mizuho America's Open, also her investments, like her recent investment in media company Together. Then there was Sheryl Swoopes, the OG trailblazer in women's basketball. She was talking about what it's like watching this current generation of stars explode, not just on the court, but off the court and in the business space. It wasn't just for athletes, though. We were joined by Liz Moore, the commissioner of the LPGA Tour. I think you get the point that we're trying to make here, though, and that is that women's sports is big business. And I want you to take a listen to some of my favorite moments from my conversations with all these panelists. Bold predictions for women's sports in 2025.
I'm extremely excited for the Valkyries, the new WNBA team, and hopefully the Valkyries will win the championship.
Ooh.
This isn't just about Asia getting her shoe. I mentioned Asia being only the second African-American woman to have her signature shoe with Nike. It's pretty big. It's really big. But when I think about the growth of the game and women's sports in general, we've come so far. We still got a long ways to go, but I think of all the little girls out there who can dream and have goals and aspirations to do whatever it is they want to do, and to know that those dreams can become a reality.
We're here to stay. Women's sport is big business and will continually be so.
Here's to women. Yes. Cheers to women competing.
Here's to women winning.
Women winning.
Cheers to
we
women
are
winning
here to
indeed.
stay. Queens, I love that. Thank you, Derryl. Let's now shift over and see what's bubbling at the water cooler. Well, no one expected the Boston Celtics to become the first team since '96 to lose 2 games back-to-back when leading by 20-plus points, while also no one expected Paul Pierce to actually be a man of his word and follow through. I mean, no one expected this. He made it, though, guys. Paul Pierce made it. He did walk to work, and much like the flu game that he had years ago as a Celtic, he had to be walked in with a wheelchair.
Okay, so what I love so much about this, yes, FS1 is going all in on this.
Love this.
That he walked in. If you missed this, obviously, he said he didn't think that the Celtics would lose the game, and if they did, he would walk the 8 hours to work, you know, in his bathrobe and no shoes, but he made it into the Fox set. What I find to be so interesting, he lives in Calabasas, where the Kardashians live. So that is a little bit of a trek to Century City, where they have the Fox studios. But this is, you know, great. It's funny for Paul Pierce. The thing I thought was so hilarious, he posted his step count. He did over 30,000 steps the day that he walked to work, but every other day during the week, dude is barely getting 1,000 steps.
I don't know what he's doing.
I don't know what he's doing either, unless he's like, I've done enough steps the rest of my life, I don't need to walk anymore. But I just think Paul Pierce needs to be walking a little bit more than just
He got all
work.
His steps in with that walk to work. That's what he made up for it. He's compensating for that. But also, we've got exciting news because we've got our first Pope from the United States.
Ooh,
Pope Leo XIV from Chicago. He's a Nova grad. He's a Chicago sports fan, not the Cubs, but the White Sox, of course. And I know that the late Pope Francis respected him and thought so highly of him. And honestly, I can say, since we've learned about Pope Leo, I too am liking him, especially when I see the different posts on X and how he seems very down to earth and relatable, like a people's person.
Loves Wordle, does friends,
Correct,
you know, words with friends, with with his other friends and stuff like that. But let's get to the sports aspect, because how this unraveled. People just assume because he was from Chicago, he was a Cubs fan. So the Cubs then ran with this. Turns out it was not true. His brother then does an interview with the local affiliate WGN and says it is like ridiculous to think he'd be a Cubs fan. He is absolutely a White Sox fan, so clearly he loves to be depressed. But then also,
and that makes him loyal.
Yes,
you stick with the White Sox.
But he also seems like he's a Bulls fan as well. And then you mentioned Villanova. People then theorize on X that maybe he's a Knicks fan because of all the Villanova players on there. But I love this. I think this is a great connection that people have to somebody like him, to a high deity like him. And I think this is just a great story.
And it's a great moment because we're talking about the Pope. And I think to have the Pope be someone that is so relatable, that is so down to earth, that has a lot of correlation in sports and entertainment and so many different things, it's fun to see, and it's fun to see him like emerging in the spotlight and us learning a little bit about him. Especially I saw a post saying like now he's going to get a stained glass of Michael Jordan. Like I love that they're taking this and running with this.
The memes were great because some of the memes were him walking out to the Alan Parsons Project song that they do at Bulls games.
The internet is undefeated again. But we also have an exciting show coming your way on Monday. That does it for us. The final episode of the week and the final episode of Front Office Sports Today. You can tune in on Monday as we kick off the week with ESPN draft analyst Matt Miller joining us. So as always, thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great rest of your week.